Hola, hola mi gente. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Verity. And if you're new here, welcome. And if you're back again, welcome back. Thank you for returning. So my YouTube channel is where you're gonna come so that you can have a safe space to kiss your brain for a moment and get a better understanding of how to navigate your mind in this physical realm. I like to talk about things in a spiritual aspect, include science into it, and talk about a lot more other things when it comes down to belief systems, religion, scriptures. I'm going to get all up in here because I have so much to share and so much to teach with those who are willing to come on this platform and listen to me. So if you are interested in any of that, if you like my channel, if you like how I teach, make sure that you subscribe to my channel, hit that bell notification button so that you know when I post a new video, and make sure that you hit the like button and share it if you really found this helpful. So today, what I wanted to talk about was, we were talking about last week, I had made a video about understanding how to program a child, because when we're healing the inner child, we have to understand how we even got to a place of needing healing and what was done to our minds and our programming system that has caused us to be in a state that now needs reprogramming and needs healing. I wanted to touch base on that, but go from healing the inner child and knowing what's going on within us and in our minds, but more so what is mental transmutation and what is mental alchemy. Now, I've made videos on this before, and I didn't continue to create content on this because I didn't understand it in the way that I do now. You know, when you're learning about a topic, or you know, a specific thing, and you can hear all the information, you can read all the information, and you know, you just keep filling your mind up with it, but it's like those neural pathways are just like, but they're not clicking. It's like, I get it, but I don't get it. I get it, but I don't get it. I get it now. I understand it now because I was able to implement it into my own life, and I was able to actually see the transformation in my entire life, from full understanding coming into full awareness and understanding, and then being able to implement it and see the results in my life. So when we're talking about mental transmutation, and I also got some notes here that I had took in my notebook prior to, just some pointers that I don't want to miss when I'm creating the video. So when we're talking about mental transmutation and mental alchemy, we're talking about pretty much like turning lemons into limes, turning the negativity in our lives into the positive things, and how it correlates with biblical and spiritual teachings. Now, I know that there are so many people out there who are against these types of teachings, especially when they talk about the Bible. And the thing is, the Bible, in my opinion, I believe the Bible is an allegory. I believe that there's so many different hidden things in there that unless you're diligently seeking and reading and studying for yourself, you're not going to get those pearls of wisdom until you're ready to receive that information. Now, other people can believe otherwise. There's other people who feel like the Bible is what it says, and the words and the scriptures and the stories are to be taken literally. I don't believe that. I've read so many scriptures over and over and over again within year span, that from the moment that I first read it to like 4 or 5 years later that I read it, I get a totally different understanding and revelation from it. So that's been my experience with understanding scripture and my experience with applying scripture. Now, when we're talking about mental alchemy, there's so many different points within the New Testament where we're seeing Jesus, Yahushua Mashiach, teaching mental alchemy, teaching mental transmutation, and they're putting it in plain sight, even in physical transmutation, physically showing what alchemy is in the physical realm, where he's creating wine, he's turning water into wine. when you think about the process of even creating wine today, it's a form of alchemy. When you're creating wine, you're taking old grapes, rotten grapes, and you're transmuting it and creating something much more valuable and much more sought after than those rotten grapes. However, you can't get to the wine unless you had something that was completely rotten and undesirable. So when we're thinking about that just in the physical aspect, or when people say when life throws you lemons, you make lemonade. Lemons are sour and they're not desirable, but if you take that and you transmute the lemons into lemonade, then you can profit off of the lemonade. Those are just metaphors, but it holds truth in how we look at our circumstances in our lives and the trauma that we faced, or the bad circumstances, or the negativity that we faced. And we have two directions that we can choose when we're dealing with those traumas. We have two directions that we can choose when we're dealing with those negative moments in our lives, and it's either you transmute it for good, or you continue to feed it and you keep bouncing that energy to keep growing it and creating more chaos in your life. Now, in James, what was it? James 4:8. It tells us, draw near to God and God will draw near to us, because he would cleanse us and purify our hearts from double-mindedness. Now, when I was reading that, I was thinking, like, what makes a person a double-minded person? Now, again, I can get controversial when I talk about certain things that I believe. And one of the things that I do believe is, I don't believe that depression and anxiety exist. I believe depression and anxiety only exist if you say it exists within your reality. I think that when we're dealing with depression and anxiety, at that very moment, you're making a choice on whether you want to stay there or not. You're making a choice on whether you want to continue your thought process in the state that's making you depressed, or continue your thought process in the state that's making you anxious. Or you can take that very moment and be like, what am I thinking about? Why do I feel this way? And let me change what I'm thinking about real quick. I actually made a video years ago about how thoughts and feelings create your reality. That's when I started to come into the awareness of this very fact. However, it wasn't until a little bit later that I realized, like, this doesn't really exist. The more that I stay in the depressive state, or the more that I stay in this fearful state, that's me making the choice that there's nothing that I can do about the situation that I'm in. Whether it be financial problems, whether it be, a breakup, or, a friendship, or, something happened in my home where, everything got flooded and stuff. I can sit there and think about it in a negative way, or I can sit there and be like, okay, what can I do to turn this into a better situation? Especially the number one thing that I'm going to discuss too later on is like breakups. I feel like so many people allow breakups and heartbreak to turn them into such like depleted despair, because they're so focused on the thought of losing this person, not realizing that losing anything in life is just a rebirth, so that you can create something better, so that new opportunities can come in. Whether you're losing a job, whether you're losing a person, there's room there to expand and create and make something new. But yet so many people choose to stay focused on the negativity instead of transmuting it for something better. Like, let's say you are out of a relationship and two people broke up. 9 times out of 10, you guys broke up for a negative reason. There was a reason why the relationship could no longer work, and it was probably best that you guys moved forward and did something better with your time and your beings, instead of being in a relationship and creating toxicity. But yet people will look at that person like that's the best that they can do, and they will sit and dwell in that heartbreak. And don't get me wrong, initially when you're losing somebody and you're grieving that life that you thought that you would have with them, that's a negative moment to be in. It's when you decide, and whether you believe that you're deciding or not, you are deciding to stay in that state, and you're deciding to not come out the bed. You're deciding to not eat. You're deciding to skip the gym. You're deciding to bail on the hobbies that you used to do, or bail on plans that you have with your friends, instead of looking at yourself dead in the mirror, looking at yourself and saying, I think I'm done with this. I'm done with feeling like this, and there's something positive that can come out of this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to get out the bed. I'm going to go to the gym. Even if I don't feel like it, I'm going to go to the gym because it's going to benefit me. And I'm going to put my makeup on. I'm going to put my hat on and get my hair cut, whatever it is. And I'm going to go out there and I'm going to do something with this energy and try to change it up. I'm going to try to shake myself out of this depression. You have the choice. You have the choice, and that's as bare minimum as that explanation can go. You have the choice on whether you want to stay in that depressive state or not. Same thing with being anxious. You're fearing something. There's something at a root cause that you're fearing that you can't seem to shake. And I feel like that is a form of being double-minded. When you're depressed, you're focused on the past. When you're anxious, you're fearful towards the future, and that has yet to come. The past ceased to exist, so what can you do now? You can even sit there and be in delusion. I'd rather be, and that's another thing that people say, like it's a hit or miss in the community of people talking about, changing your thought process. Like, either you can be delusional and revise the situation and make it seem like something it wasn't, or you can just move forward from it. Whatever works for you in that moment so that you can get your mind right, I say do it. Because it's better than just sitting there in the bed. It's better than just sitting there being completely depleted from your energy and allowing that state of being, that frequency, that vibration to keep growing till it's a part of your everyday personality, a part of your everyday being, that now it's getting harder for you to come out of it. Harder to the point where you believe that depression is just your natural state, where anxiety is your natural state. I have a hard time believing that you can't help those two mental health disorders. I have a hard time believing that. I do believe that there is excessive trauma, that some people just seem like their brain is so severely damaged that they cannot alter their way back into a normal brain and mindset. But I'm not even comparing that to what I'm talking about when there's people who are out here just going through the basic everyday life, breakups, working, raising children, just living a normal life, but yet they're choosing to be negative. They're choosing to be fearful. They're choosing to fill their minds up with everything that's putting them in the lowest vibrational state. And it's just like, why stay there? Why stay there when you have the ability to transmute any situation that you're in for something better? Like, even if you had, your house flooded and you have flood insurance, maybe you'll get more money from your house for your damages than what you anticipated, and you don't even miss the things that you lost in the flood. Or if you're in a relationship and you break up, maybe you found somebody better who has the same interest as you, who, is vibrating on the same frequency as you, who has the same star point and mindset as you, versus somebody who didn't care about anything that you were interested in, or somebody who cheated on you, or, hit you, or whatever it was that trauma bonded you to them. There's opportunities to meet somebody else who's more compatible. There's so many different ways to look at lemons, at the negativity in your life, and so many people choose to stay in the mindset that's just familiar because they want to dwell in their sadness. I feel like you're not walking in power when you're doing that. You have the power to turn darkness into light. And I feel like that is what Jesus was teaching in the New Testament, was teaching us how to transmute the darkness into light, how to be alchemists, how to be a spiritual being and a human form, and be able to use the spiritual realm to navigate the physical realm. it tells us in the Bible that we're supposed to follow in the steps as Jesus. If somebody tells you that you can't do what Jesus does, then you need to step back and be like, no, like the scripture tells us we are supposed to follow him. We're supposed to heal like him. We're supposed to be able to do exactly what he does. What makes you think that you don't have the power within or the authority to be just as powerful in creating healing in your life, transmuting illness into health? That's another thing when it comes down to, hold on, I wrote that about, when it comes down to creating illness in your body, when you're stuck in a low vibrating frequency, when you're stuck in those depressive states, in those anxious states, it takes a toll on the body. It takes a toll on the body because your mind creates disease. Your mind and your thoughts and how you feel is constantly creating the physical being of how you're presenting yourself out here. Why do you think that there's people who end up having all of these sicknesses? There's people who have heart disease, who have things that the doctors cannot even pinpoint what is causing it, which is autoimmune disease. And yet there's a high rise of so many people who are experiencing this. It has a lot to do with your mindset and the frequency that you're constantly in for a long period of time in your lifetime. There's so many things that people are not aware of when you're literally not understanding that how you're taking the trauma that you've been dealt, how you're taking the negativity that you've been dealt, the cards that you've been dealt, and allowing them to be that, the negativity, the worst possible outcome, and not saying, you know what, I have the power to turn this into lemonade, and not doing that, you're literally giving your power away. You're letting the enemy win. And the enemy will take that in every aspect that they possibly can. And when I say the enemy, I'm talking about the flesh, ourselves in a way. We have two different voices in our head. You can either choose to go left or you can choose to go right. But either way, it's going to lead you down a certain path. And everything, when we're looking at life, there's so many people who feel like being on the other side of like success or happiness or peace takes too much hard work and that it should just be handed to us. But I feel like being on the opposite side takes just as much work. It's still hard. It's hard to deal with life when you're waking up and you're feeling your absolute worst. And it's hard to deal with life when you're sacrificing so much and you're pouring so much of yourself into your everyday routines, habits, and goals so that you can get to the other end. But in the end of that, you get to reap the fruits of your labor. In the end of this hardness, a lot of people just end up in a pit hole, sometimes on drugs, drinking all the time, you know, trying to escape reality because they have a shitty life. It is what it is. You have a shitty life, so you're trying to escape from it. I'd rather choose this hard of working towards something that's going to benefit me in the end, and me, you know, taking all those hard hits and knowing that I'm going to take those and I'm gonna put them over here and use them for something else because it's gonna benefit me in the end. So when you're sitting there thinking about your thoughts, when you're sitting there thinking about what's making you anxious, what's making you depressed, what bad trauma you went through, what is the good that you can actually do with those thoughts or transmute them or turn them into something else? Like for me, an example, I will play the delusional role when it came down to finances. Like if I was working crazy hours at one point. Like I was working 60-70 hours a week because my bills were so high. Like things just started piling up because unforeseen circumstances happened where I was like on cloud nine. I was as responsible with finances as I can possibly be. I had a good hefty savings account. I just knew the next few years I was finna be on top. Boom, life hit like that, and my life did a whole 180. So what I was relying on, what I had my mind on, had completely flipped and was no longer there because of unforeseen circumstances. I could have allowed that to completely deteriorate me, and God knows I almost did. God knows, but I told myself I can't go out like that. I can't go out like that. I have a son, I have a child, and then two, I know that at the end of this, like, if I just keep pushing through, my breakthrough's on the other side. Whatever this is supposed to teach me, it's going to teach me something so valuable that once I get to that other side, I'm going to get back 10 times what I lost. And I believe that. I believe that to my core. Can't nobody come around and tell me otherwise. I believe that to my core. And I focus on that every single day. I don't focus on what I lost anymore. Now, when I would sit there and I'd be like, dang, I don't have enough money for this bill, and my bill was due like in 2-3 days, I literally, and I didn't even realize what I was doing at that time, but I literally was just saying, all my bills are paid on time. 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 I always have more than enough money. I always have more than enough money. Even if I didn't see it, even if I didn't believe it at that moment, I will constantly tell myself at that moment when I would think the opposite. Because when I would think the opposite, like when I was talking about thoughts and feelings in my last video, like years ago, it gave me this electrical pulse in my chest that did not feel good. It was like an indication, like, no, you're thinking about the wrong shit. Refocus. You always have more than enough money. God always supplies all your needs. You always have more than enough money. All your bills are paid on time. I don't care if I was down to my last cent. That belief, it stays true to this day. It don't matter if my account is negative. I cannot explain it. All my bills are paid on time. I always have more than enough money. I do not live in a state of needing, of lack, of not having enough, because even when I did at that moment, because I knew what my thoughts were telling me, and I just kept believing in it. I kept affirming that was my truth. When I completely flipped it, because I relied on my emotions to tell me I was out of alignment. I am living in fear. I am living in anxiety right now, and I can't focus on that. Focus on the things above. All my bills are paid on time. All my needs are met. Like God told me, all my needs are met. He is my supplier. I believed it, and I'm telling you, it stands true to this day. But the moment that you feed into that fear, the moment that you feed into that depression, you're living in that double-mindedness. You don't have enough faith in who you serve and what the possibilities of turning this negative into a positive could be. That is how you utilize mental alchemy. That is how you utilize mental transmutation. And let me tell you, it's so much easier said than done when you're in the midst of it. When you're in the midst of turmoil, it's just like, I can't think straight. I can't think straight at this very moment, because all I see is what the flesh is showing me. All I see is what the flesh is showing me. All I see is what the 3D is showing me. I can't focus on the spirit. I can't focus on the 5D. I can't focus on the things above, because my circumstances here on the outside is all I see and all I know. So it's kind of hard for me to really cultivate that faith within. But it's something you have to intentionally work on every single day. Every single day. Faith without works is dead. You have to work towards your faith every single day. Just like you would, I say it's just like a drug. You're getting off of a drug, you're going to have to keep doing the exercises and the routines that's keeping you off that drug, so that you can keep your mindset focused on staying clean. Same thing when you're cultivating that faith within. You're gonna have to have some type of routine, open that Bible every single day. Open whatever works for you. I'm not gonna tell nobody what to do, but whatever works for you. For me, it was the Bible. I mean, I was in turmoil. I picked up that Bible every single day and I read it. I seeked God. I was praying every single day, and it just was like a blanket of comfort over my mind, over my body. My nervous system would just be so regulated once I got in that word and I started highlighting the promises. So I started coming into agreement with the words that I found in there. Even if I didn't understand it, little by little, as I got deeper and deeper into my faith, as I got deeper and deeper into understanding who God is, seeking God, understanding what I was causing in my life, it got better. It got better. That fear that was within me, that double-mindedness that I had, it subsided. It subsided substantially, to the point that I can see a big old fearful monster in front of me and I'd be like, and that doesn't even exist. People would think I'm delusional because I would say certain things don't exist. Certain things don't scare me. They don't, because you have to realize you have the power to give something meaning and energy. So the moment that you engage with it, the moment that you engage with that fearful thing, that thing that is causing your emotions turmoil, that thing that's shocking your nervous system, that's when you're giving it your power and you're giving it that belief. It needs that fire so that it can keep being created and cultivated in your life. Your beliefs will always create your reality. So the moment that you see that fearful thing or that fearful thought or that belief pop up, you need to give it another meaning. You have to transmute it and give it another meaning. Another meaning. That girl or that boy broke your heart. They were so weak in their femininity and their masculinity that they couldn't handle a person of my stature. Whatever it is. I don't care how delusional you sound. If that's what you need to tell yourself at that moment, neutralize it. You need to neutralize so that you can transmute and so that you can move forward and have those thoughts reprogrammed, whatever it is. My mom, my dad did this, that, and the fourth to me growing up, or I grew up in poverty, or I grew up, being abused, whatever it is. Give it a new meaning. Give it a new meaning. Because the more that you stay in that trauma, the more that you stay in that unhealed inner child wound, the more that it's going to bleed out into your everyday reality, into your future. You need to nip it at the butt. You need to identify what the problem is, what the negativity is, and you need to give it a new meaning. You need to bring it to the forefront, and you need to see what your identity in God is, who your identity in God is, and you need to believe it. You need to understand that you have the power. You have authority over all these demonic forces, because that's all a negative thought is. It's a demonic force. It's a negative frequency that you're tuned into. So these negative demonic entities have a way into your mind. The more that you engage in this negative thought process, the more you're giving the enemy and these negative demonic forces and entities access to your mind. You have to sit down and think about the thoughts that are yours and sent from a negative entity. Another thing when it comes down to even like witchcraft or spells, what's the most interesting saying I've ever heard when it came down to spells and people cursing you and putting a hex on you is 90% of us, 90% of you putting a spell or a curse on somebody is telling that person that you put a spell and a curse on them. The moment you tell a person, I put a spell on you, I put a hex on you, if that person does not know who they are and does not know the authority and the power that they hold within, and if they're weak-minded, they're going to believe that, and they're going to be vibrating on such a fearful frequency that the moment something bad happens, they're going to be like, oh, it's because this person put a spell on me. And then that's going to trickle on into their everyday life. And if they don't get a good grasp on their mind and transmute that energy, if somebody sends you bad energy, energy can't be created, nor can it be destroyed. So if somebody sends you negative energy, what do? You say, thank you. Boop. Thank you. I'm going to use that energy and I'm going to cultivate something new and make it work for my benefit. What does it say? When a man in the Bible, when a man curses you, bless them, pray for them. Why? That's a form of transmutation. If somebody curses you and Jesus is telling you to bless them, he's telling you take that negativity and transmute it. You send out positive energy. You pray for them. You transmute that and use it for your benefit, because when you're vibrating at such a high frequency, when you're in that positive mindset, when you're in that positive electromagnetic field, it polarizes the negative. It's vibrating way high. It cancels it out. It cannot be. If you're vibrating this high, a negative entity cannot come through and mess with your frequency. It just won't work. That's why there's so many people who cannot click. They are literally repelling each other because one person might be vibrating at a low frequency and the other person's vibrating at a high frequency. And when they're in each other's vortex, when they're in each other's spaces, they just don't mix. They don't mix. They're not vibrating. They're not aligning. One of them is going to be repulsed by the other, because they're too much in the negativity that they can't handle the light and the frequency that this person is vibrating on. There's a science to it all. That's why I bring in the science into my understanding, because I can't sit there and just say, oh, spirituality and religion, it's just an unseen force. It's like magic. It's just spirit. No, there's a science to it. There's a science to it. They've been studying this stuff for years. We just now have names that we can put it into terms. The quantum field, the metaphysical aspect of how our minds work, how our energy fields work, how our thoughts and our emotions are affecting everyone around us and everything around us. It's not a secret anymore. It's not a secret. It's not demonic. It is a science to the spiritual realm. And the more that people get the understanding of how to use their minds and navigate their mindset and utilize it to a way where it's beneficial for the outside world, the better that we would be, the better off that we would be in the near future. People need to understand, it's these people that we're dealing with, these negative things that we're dealing with, they're not our enemies. Really, you're your biggest enemy. Everything that you're dealing with, every aspect of your life has everything to do with you. Okay, your parents did some messed up things to you. You had a messed up childhood. That person cheated on you. You know, that friend betrayed you. You know, your job fired you in an whatever word it is, you didn't deserve to be fired, whatever the case may have been, and you just feel betrayed by your job. Now you can't pay for your bills or, you know, feed your family. There is a positive in all of that. Everything is happening for you. It's not happening to you. And every time something negative is shown to you in your reality, in your life, something that you deem negative, something that you deem like just such a low blow, take time to sit there. Journal if you need to. Pray if you need to. Because praying and journaling was big for me. Like whenever I was dealing with something just so unbearable, and I was so dramatic. I remember I used to cry about everything, like just everything that would happen to me. It just felt like my life was falling apart because I just could not handle change, and I could not handle negative change. And the best advice I've ever gotten from a friend, my best friend, she said, don't take your problems to God. Bring his promises to him. His word does not come back void. He knows what he wrote. He knows that his word stands tall. Like, you need to come into agreement with his word, building that belief system, being able to truly cultivate that faith within, that unbreakable, that unwavering, that unshakable faith in your belief system, and know that everything is going to work out. When you have that solid foundation, and then you have the tools to understand how to transmute and use your mind and your thoughts to completely change the outcome of things, you have everything you need. You have everything you need. Even if it's success. Why do you think there's so many successful people out here who still are chasing the next big thing? They accomplish one goal, but yet they're following the next one. When it comes down to money status, when they hit their first million, they want their next million. They want 10 million now. It's never enough because they're not spiritually aligned. The moment that you're spiritually aligned within, seek the kingdom first, and all else shall be added on to you. Because once you match that being of just, I know it's going to work out. I know that everything is always working out for my highest good. Romans 8:28. All things work for good for those who love the Lord. Once you know that, and I mean know that to your core, now believe it. Like I believe all things are going to work out for me. When you believe or you don't really know, it's still shaky. It's still a little shaky when you're just believing it. But when you know, when you're knowing, that's when the magic happens. That's when you're seeing everything in your atmosphere start shifting, because you're walking in your power. You're just walking in authority because you know. Like if you just know, let's say your rent is due on Friday. They'll give you like 3-5 days to pay it off, but you know you're getting a huge check on that following Monday. You're gonna walk like your rent is paid, are you not? Even though it's gonna be a little bit, you just know, that check is on its way. My big old check is coming on Monday. It's fine. Everything's gonna be paid. I'll pay that little late fee. Like you're not even bothered about the late fee at this point. Somebody just, like, you just know you're about to get this big check. You just know. You don't walk just wondering, like, I believe it's gonna, like, I know that check was supposed to come. Okay, I believe it's coming. No, you know that check is coming. So you just walk with your nervous system calm. That's how you have to have faith. You have to have a calm nervous system, so that, again, our body, our electromagnetic field, how we feel, how we think, and how we feel affects everything around us. So when your nervous system is calm and you just know that it's going to happen, it can easily come and flow to you. God knows that we need food, clothes, a roof over our heads. Why do we focus so much on the things that are negative out here that we see with our physical eyes? Focus on the things above. Focus on the spiritual things. And everything happens in the spiritual first before it manifests into the flesh, into the physical realm. So if you're seeing negativity in the physical realm, just disregard it. I know, again, I know that it's harder to do that when you're in the midst of hell. When you're in the midst of turmoil, it is so much harder to do it. But I promise you, the more that you practice it, that's all I'm asking. Anybody who's wanting to transmute and change their thoughts or their negative their negative aspects in their life for a better outcome, I'm just telling, make it a practice, make it a habit that you're constantly taking time to pray and just literally do the transformation. It tells us to be renewed by our minds, be transformed by the renewing of our minds. That's what that means. When it tells us take every thought captive into the obedience of Christ, that's what that means. You're taking every negative thought, any negative circumstance out here that can affect your thoughts, you're going to take that and you're going to bring it to the obedience of Christ. It's not a worry. You just know it's taken care of, and that this will be dispelled and this will be transmuted for my good, for my highest good. And you need to walk in authority and know that much about yourself and know that much about the power that's within you. Because it's really all on you. Yes, we have the Bible. Yes, we have God. But at the end of the day, how many people have the Bible and they have God, and yet they still don't see any difference in their life? You have to have that faith. You have to have that knowing first before God can work in your life. One thing, I'm going to end the video here, but one thing I want people to realize, I wanted to make a video about this, but I'm going to probably save this for my next video. The woman in the Bible who got healed by just touching Jesus's garment, did Jesus speak to her? Did Jesus have an encounter with her? she just touched his garment. And he said, who was that? Her belief was so strong. Her belief, she just knew, if I touch him, I'm gonna be healed. She touched him and she got healed. Jesus went back to his hometown where he was born to go preach and heal, and nobody believed him. And when he left, he had to leave because he couldn't heal them over there because they didn't believe. A man was able to have his friend healed because his friend didn't believe in Jesus, but he believed so much that his faith was sufficient enough to heal his friend. Now ask yourself this: did Jesus do the healing, or did the belief that they had in Jesus healing do the healing? Because if Jesus was doing the healing, regardless of their belief or not, in his hometown, they would have been healed. If Jesus was doing the healing, he would have had to have a one-on-one encounter with that woman. If Jesus was doing the healing, he would have had to have an encounter with that man so that he can get healed. But the belief that was present in that woman touching his garment, the belief in that friend that just knew that Jesus could heal his friend, and the absence of belief where they could not get healed, it all stands that the belief, how much you have faith, how much faith you have, and the power that's within, then you'll see the transformation in your life. If you don't have faith, if you don't have a knowing that you have authority and the power to transmute, heal, turn illness into health, turn financial circumstances into abundance, turn a marriage that's in turmoil into a prosperous, loving one, or the lack of a partner into finding a loving one, if you don't have the knowing and the belief in that, and you're just stuck on the negativity, then that's what you're gonna get. Just think about that for a minute. Think about that for a minute. But I'm gonna just leave it at that. So if you liked my video, make sure that you like and you subscribe, and make sure that you share. It helps the algorithm. And I'm out of here. So make sure to kiss your brain and be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself. Get out that bed. If you're depressed, get up out that bed. Get cute, get pretty, go eat. I don't care. Get out that bed and transmute that negative energy. And if you're fearful and you're anxious about something, be kind to yourself and know that everything is okay. Everything is working out for your highest good. I promise you, everything is okay. Kiss your brain.